All right, everybody. We're going to talk about TRICARE for Life, Medicare, and you now. We've in other trainings we've talked about really kind of the VA side. In other trainings we talk about CHAMP VA. This is really going to be for your TRICARE for Life folks, and we're going to kind of define that and talk about just some different scenarios that you might run across when talking to TRICARE for Life beneficiaries who also may be eligible for Medicare. So we'll start here at the top. TRICARE requires essentially your military retirees and their spouses to enroll in Parts A and B of Medicare once they're eligible. In other words, if somebody retires from the military at age 40, one of the perks is they get to keep their TRICARE. And so that's really great. They're going to keep their TRICARE until they become eligible for Medicare. And then in order to keep their TRICARE benefits going, once they're eligible for Medicare, they are required enroll Parts A and B of Medicare, and then once you add Medicare onto TRICARE, it becomes TRICARE for Life. So if you ever hear somebody say TRICARE and then they say TRICARE for Life, that's the difference. Medicare is going to be the difference. TRICARE for Life works very much like a MedSup, although it does kind of include drug coverage. There's really no deductibles or anything like that or copays, and we'll talk about that in the coming slides. With TRICARE for Life beneficiaries, Medicare is going to be primary and then TRICARE is going to pay secondary. So again, very much like a MedSup where Medicare is going to kind of pay that first 80% and then TRICARE is to pick up the remaining 20. So very, very much like a MedSup. All right, so we're going to go through some basic questions, some frequently asked questions that we run into with our TRICARE for Life folks. And the first one is, do TRICARE for Life beneficiaries need to enroll in Part A and B of Medicare? And of course, we just kind of covered this on the previous slide. They do have to have Part A and B to kind of transition their TRICARE over to TRICARE for Life. We already talked about this. Medicare is going to be primary. They're going to take that 80%, and then TRICARE is going to pick up the remaining 20. They can see any provider who accepts the original Medicare, so that's an important distinction, right? So they don't have necessarily a network per se that they have to adhere to. As long as that provider takes Medicare, they can go see that provider. They don't have to have a referral or anything like that. Medicare will automatically bill TRICARE for those covered expenses. And so there's really kind of this seamless transition there where they don't really have to worry about having to send a bill in or anything like that. As long as they show those two cards, they're going to be okay. The beneficiary will have no out-of-pocket costs for services covered by Medicare and TRICARE. So it's important to remember they don't have any additional copays. They don't have a deductible or any kind of a co-insurance that they're going to have to pay. They go in to see that provider for that service. As long as it's a service that's covered by Medicare and TRICARE, they're not going to have any type of out-of-pocket costs at the time of service. TRICARE for Life beneficiaries will pay their Part B premium. So they don't have a TRICARE for Life premium that they're responsible for, but they do need to pay that Part B premium. And so one of the cautions we like to kind of throw out there for you and just tell you to be careful of this, and this is a big question we get a lot, is can a TRICARE for Life beneficiary enroll into an MA only plan? And the shorter answer is yes, they can. The long answer is we need to be careful about this, and we just need to make sure that we're crossing all our T's, dotting all our I's, making sure we're kind of going through the good, the bad, and the ugly with that prospect. And so you can kind of see those 3 bullet points. The first one says the MA only plan will replace original Medicare and become their primary coverage to TRICARE for Life. So obviously they don't lose their Medicare or anything like that. That Medicare Advantage plan just now is going to be the primary. The TRICARE for Life member will need to stay within network of the MA only plan. So if you recall from the bullet points just above that, right, they don't have a network with just Medicare and TRICARE with TRICARE for Life, right? They can go to see any Medicare provider they like. If you put them into an MA only plan, so for instance, you put them into a PPO plan, they're going to have to adhere to that PPO network. The last slide says, hey, while they can enroll, yes, they can. It's not typically recommended that they do so because it does introduce maybe some potholes, into their coverage and some hurdles that they're gonna have to overcome. One of the other things we caution folks against, we just talked about the MA only plan. We get kind of the same question on MAPD plans. So something with drug coverage built into it, and really kind of follows the same logic, right? There's going to be the same pitfalls with network and different things like that. But the first bullet point there, TRICARE for Life drug coverage is creditable and does not have a coverage gap. So with their current situation, if they're just on TRICARE for Life and nothing else, they don't have a coverage gap. Their drug coverage doesn't go into that. So it's already creditable. So if you introduce a separate drug plan to them, now you may be introducing, in fact, a coverage gap situation. Typically, TRICARE for Life is going to provide more comprehensive coverage than an MAPD or a PDP by itself, and that is typically why we don't recommend they enroll them, because it is going to set them back a little bit as far as benefits. Enrolling a TRICARE for Life beneficiary into one of these plans will cause the TRICARE for Life beneficiary benefit to become secondary. Again, they're not disenrolled from TRICARE. They don't lose their TRICARE for Life or anything like that. It just causes it to be secondary at that point. If at any point they disenroll from that MAPD plan, they don't have to do anything to get their TRICARE for Life to become primary again, right? Once they disenroll from that MA or MAPD or PDP plan, TRICARE for Life is just going to automatically become their primary coverage once again. So they don't lose it or anything like that. The TRICARE for Life member will need to stay within network of the MAPD plan. So again, very similarly to the MA only that we just discussed. And again, yes, they can enroll in an MAPD plan. We typically don't recommend it unless there's some kind of an extenuating circumstance. All right, and the third caution we kind of like to throw out there for you and just tell you to be aware of is around the prescription drug plans, right? And so this is going to be a little repetitive. We're looking at the kind of the three categories here: MA only, MAPD, and now PDP. TRICARE for Life beneficiaries already have creditable drug coverage. So putting them on a prescription drug plan may in fact introduce a coverage gap situation to them where they don't already have that. So again, just very similarly to the MAPD that we just discussed. Enrolling a TRICARE for Life beneficiary into a PDP prescription drug plan will make their TRICARE for Life drug benefit secondary to their PDP drug coverage. So again, they're not going to lose that TRICARE for Life drug benefit. It just kind of puts it in the background, right? It becomes secondary now. And again, with the drug plans, while they can enroll, we don't typically recommend it. Those are a few pitfalls to watch out for with our TRICARE for Life folks. What we want to do now is answer maybe just a couple more, I guess, frequently asked questions, and then we're going to give you maybe a scenario or two to kind of explain what we mean by some of these things. So the first one there is going to be, does TRICARE for Life pay for copays on an MA or an MAPD plan? So the scenario here is you enroll somebody who has TRICARE for Life. They enroll into an MA or an MAPD plan. They go to the doctor. Okay, is TRICARE for Life going to pay the copays associated with that MA plan? And that first bullet point says TRICARE will be secondary to the plan and may cover copays. The member is going to need to utilize in-network providers to make sure that happens, though. So again, just like we talked about on the previous slide, they do need to make sure that they're sticking to that plan network to make sure this happens. Last but not least, the member will be responsible for ensuring that TRICARE is billed. And we're going to explain this in a scenario here in just a moment. But it is that member's responsibility to make sure that those bills are making it up to TRICARE so that they can be taken care of. Maybe that's a copay at the time of service or something like that. But that is going to fall on the member now to make sure that happens. Okay, can a TRICARE for Life beneficiary enroll into an MA or an MAPD plan just to use the additional benefits like dental, Part B reduction, over-the-counter hearing, silver sneakers, all those extra things, and then continue to just use their original Medicare as they do currently? So we get this question a lot, right? Can I enroll in this plan and kind of have the best of both worlds, right? I want to show my TRICARE card when I go to my doctor, but I want to show my MA only or MAPD card when I go to try to access silver sneakers, or I want to use the dental or the over-the-counter? And the short answer is no, right? They have to choose one or the other. It's all or nothing. So the answer is no. The TRICARE for Life beneficiary would need to utilize the MA or MAPD plans that they've enrolled in, because remember their original Medicare is being replaced by that MA plan. So now that MA or MAPD plan is kind of running the show. All right, third question is, do TRICARE for Life beneficiaries receive dental coverage? TRICARE for Life beneficiaries can purchase, what we call a Fed VIP plan, Federal Employees Dental and Vision Insurance Program coverage. They can go to the Benefeds website. Honestly, if you just get onto Google and just type in Benefeds, or even if you type in Fed VIP, you'll be able to access that site. Now, TRICARE for Life folks did have some additional dental coverage just a few years ago, not very long ago, and there were some changes, and so that's why we sometimes see some of these TRICARE for Life folks kind of looking outside TRICARE for dental coverage or something like that. The second bullet point there says they have an annual enrollment period for this. It starts on the Monday of the second full work week in November, which is a little confusing, but that's how they have it spelled out. And then it goes through the Monday of the second full work week in December. So they've got about a month there every year that they can enroll. What we do recommend is, if they're outside that enrollment period and they're looking for a dental plan or something like that, typically rather than put them into an MAPD, a lot of times it just makes more sense to just put them in a standalone dental plan. So you can put them in one of the Humana dental plans in that situation. All right, so can a TRICARE for Life beneficiary enroll into a MedSup plan or some type of other similar coverage? Signing up for a MedSup would be pretty unnecessary. They're going to have obviously probably going to have an additional monthly premium. They're going to be really double covered, and there's not really an advantage to that. Federal retirees who also retired from the military may already have access to FEHB. That's our Federal Employees Health Benefits. They may enroll and pay for the additional coverage, but because they already have full coverage with TRICARE for Life, the additional coverage really isn't necessary. So we really don't recommend, in short, that they enroll in any kind of a MedSup or similar plan to that's going to have a premium on it, because it's really not going to give them much of an advantage, if any, at all. And they're going to be paying extra for it. So those are the few of the frequent questions we get with TRICARE for Life. What we want to do now is maybe give you some examples. We kind of told you what not to do and what to be careful of. So what we want to do is maybe give you some examples and scenarios of what some of these situations might look like in real life. And our disclaimer says that these are examples only. They may not necessarily occur as described below, but I will tell you that we have seen some of these. We've taken these from real life examples. So these aren't things we made up. We have actually looked at actual claims data and actual complaints, and we've kind of created these scenarios for you based on those facts. So the first one here says, how are claims filed with TRICARE when a beneficiary is enrolled into an MA or MAPD plan? The first thing that happens is that member is going to request that their provider bill TRICARE. And you'll see it says there Wisconsin Physician Services in parentheses. That's just kind of a third party entity that TRICARE contracts to take care of some of the billing. So the member's going to request that the provider bill TRICARE as their secondary coverage. It's kind of up to the provider at this point what they do. And so you see there, if the member's provider will not do that, then it's going to fall onto the member. They're going to have to fill out this form, DD 2642. That's a Department of Defense form. You can Google that. You can get on Google and Google DD 2642, and you'll pull it up pretty quickly. Or you can even just get on and Google TRICARE for Life reimbursement form, and you should be able to find it that way as well. So it's fairly easy to get a hold of. The second sub-bullet there says the member will need to send the form to Wisconsin Physician Services for reimbursement. So they'll need to get that mailing address, send it up to them, and have them take care of that. So It can get a little tricky here if that provider says, hey, I don't want to bill TRICARE or Wisconsin Physician Services on your behalf. I want you to have to take care of that, right? So that's why we say, there can be some potholes kind of along the way. And I'm going to back up here before we go on and kind of cover this, because this comes up sometimes where sometimes I'll have somebody say, well, what I like to do is I like to call that member or that prospect's providers and just ask them, say, hey, will you agree to go ahead and bill Wisconsin Physician Services or bill TRICARE for this? If we put this person into this MA plan, will you go ahead and agree to do that? And that's great, except the problem with that is there's no contract in place, right? So that provider could say on the phone, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And then they may change their mind a month later. And now, you've got an upset member or prospect on your hands. So just be careful of that. I know it sounds good in theory to just call the provider and ask them to do so. But again, there's no guarantee that they will continue to follow that process. So just be aware of that. Okay, so another scenario we have, TRICARE for Life member enrolls into an MA plan. They visit that network provider. The provider agrees to send that bill on their behalf, right? They're going to send it up to Wisconsin Physician Services. That's kind of the scenario here. So in this scenario, the member pays nothing for that service as long as it's covered under Medicare and TRICARE. But again, it all hinges on that provider. As long as that provider agrees to send that bill up to Wisconsin Physician Services. So this is obviously the most perfect situation. This is what we would want to have happen every time, but it's not a guaranteed issue. Again, everything hinges on that provider. This is typically, right here is why we recommend that our TRICARE for Life beneficiaries don't enroll into an MA or MAPD plan, because it does open them up to, not having these bills sent up on their behalf. They kind of have to go and take care of it themselves. All right, a few more scenarios we want to give you. The TRICARE for Life member enrolls into an MA plan. They visit that network provider, but in this scenario, the provider says, no, I'm not going to bill Wisconsin Physician Services. I'm going to have you do that. You go take care of that. So in this situation, the member is going to be subject to any co-pays or co-insurances that are associated with that plan that they're in. The member may be able to receive reimbursement, but they're going to have to go and submit the form. They're going to have to send a copy of the original bill to Wisconsin Physician Services. And so it becomes a little more cumbersome for the member at that point. That it really kind of falls on them to get reimbursed. All right, in this scenario, TRICARE for Life, the TRICARE for Life member enrolls into an MA plan, and then they go to a out-of-network provider with the plan. So again, maybe they're in for example, they're in a PPO plan, in a Medicare Advantage PPO plan, and now they've gone outside of that PPO network. What happens next? The member, number one, the member is going to be responsible for the copay at the time of service. So they're probably going to have to go ahead and pay for, that PCP copay or that specialist copay or whatever the case may be. They're going to go ahead and have to pay for that at that time. Then the member's going to need to submit that reimbursement form, that DD form 2642 we talked about. They're going to need to send that up to Wisconsin Physician Services. The reimbursement is not guaranteed in this situation. So it's very important to remember that. And we need to make sure if, and it's a big if we enroll a TRICARE for Life beneficiary into any type of a Medicare Advantage plan, we need to make sure they understand, hey, if you go outside of that network with the MA plan, TRICARE for Life may not reimburse that claim. So just make sure that they're kind of aware of that. Sometimes they may reimburse part of the cost. Sometimes they'll reimburse the full cost. It just kind of really depends. It's going to depend on that situation and that provider. All right, so we gave you a few frequently asked questions, and then we gave you some scenarios. And while those scenarios are, for all intents and purposes, they were contrived or made up, just to give you an example, they were drawn from real life situations. So, if you ever watch the movie and it says based on, inspired by a true story or based on a true story, right? That's kind of what we're saying there. These are a few examples of actual TRICARE for Life related Section 8 allegations we've received. And so this is why we want y'all to be very careful. We want you to kind of take your time and go through, the good, the bad, and the ugly with that person. So this first scenario, the member asked if she could get the dental and vision without getting the rest of the coverage that the plan offered, and the agent replied, "Hey, it all comes in one package. You get your dental, your vision, your hearing, and then it does have, just the little medical things in there as well," which is not grammatically correct, but also not really great information to give them. And so the lesson we learned from this is that the TRICARE for Life and hey, I've got TRICARE for Life and I just want to pick this plan up for dental and vision coverage. You need to confirm if the member is already aware that they can get, the Fed VIP through the Benefeds website first. And so again, we talked about that a few slides ago. You can Google Fed VIP or you can Google Benefeds and you'll find that information fairly easily. The second scenario here, and this is, again, maybe not just a scenario, but an actual example. The member was advised that their Care Plus health plan was an add-on plan to his Medicare and TRICARE, and that they would not be removing, quote unquote, removing those plans, only adding Care Plus health plans. And while, yes, it's true that they don't lose their TRICARE for Life, remember in this instance, the Care Plus plan is going to essentially replace original Medicare, right? And so it's going to change that billing process and that claims process. So the lesson learned here is when a veteran joins a Medicare Advantage plan, then their TRICARE coverage becomes secondary to that plan. The member must utilize in-network providers and request that the providers send that bill up to Wisconsin Physician Services in order for TRICARE to cover those out-of-pocket costs. The MA plan cannot be utilized for additional benefits like dental or hearing. So just an important kind of lesson to learn there. Third scenario, member was told by agent of record that the enrollment into an HMO plan, there's a pretty strict network there, an HMO plan would not affect his TRICARE for Life benefits. So the lesson we got from this is that this allegation was actually founded. The agent gave incorrect information about how that worked in that situation, how that MA would work with the TRICARE for Life in this situation. The agent needed to explain, but didn't, obviously, that enrolling into an MAPD, an HMO MAPD plan would require the member to utilize in-network providers. And so they essentially said, yeah, you can enroll in this and nothing's going to change, right? And that's obviously, from what we've learned so far, that is incorrect information. So again, want to be very careful with your TRICARE for Life prospects members because there are some very real Section A risks here for you as the agent.